morning. Ray here with the Claremont Club, and today I'm going to go through a body weight based workout that's intended for seniors, and the idea is that we don't need to get down to the floor. So we'll be able to do all the exercises from the chair, from standing. So this will be great for anybody that wants a whole body workout that does not require getting down to the floor. So we'll run through everything for 2 sets of 12 or 2 sets of whatever we're going to do. And if you need to take additional breaks, you can always pause the video. And if you want to do a third round, you could just simply repeat the video, maybe do a third and fourth round. So to get started here, you can follow along in the video. Seated in a chair, we're going to start by simply marching those legs in place. And we'll do 12 per side here. So if you want to put your hands on your hips or hands on your thighs, we're lifting the feet, lifting the knees by using the core and the hip flexors. Let's rest there. Good. Take a little break, and then we'll run through that one more time. One way to step this up and make it a little harder is to bring your back away from the backrest. And then again, we're marching in place here. So by moving forward away from the backrest, now your core has to work a little harder to support your spine, keep you upright, and it's going to be a little more challenging to prevent yourself from leaning back. So we're almost there. Keep going. And let's rest there. Next, same idea. You can either be seated with back all the way against the backrest. Maybe that's the best place to start. Let's take those hands from your sides. We're going to reach them up overhead and then bring them back down. So the way that I like to think of this one is if you were putting dishes away, maybe putting something on a high shelf, we want to be able to reach those hands up overhead while keeping the torso tall. No leaning back here. And let's rest there. It's 12 or so. This time, scoot forward away from the backrest. Let's give it a try. So if we're reaching and placing something on a high shelf, you've got to be able to reach all the way up overhead. Extend those arms long. And if you've got weights at home, whether it's dumbbells or maybe you've got a decent sized water bottle, you can practice lifting that up overhead. Let's do a couple more here. And set that down and rest. So what we'll do next here is lifting those hands away from your thighs, is using those core muscles to turn that upper body as far as you can in one direction and then as far as you can in the other. And we're not wrenching the spine back and forth. We're simply using those abdominal muscles to help control that movement side to side. And now to spice this up a little bit, you can reach those arms long. Remember, we're going 12 each direction, so this set's going to be a little bit longer. Maybe you're not quite able to extend those arms long, and maybe you're working with arms about halfway bent here. Good. Let's rest there. So we'll run through that one more time. This time, scoot those feet all the way together, and let's work on reaching those arms long. We're going again. We got birds in the background. Chicken's next door. We're about halfway through this set here. Remember, you can always pause if you ever need to take a break. And this is yet another exercise where holding on to that water bottle, maybe a pair of weights, maybe a single heavy book, that can all add a challenge. That's something that you can work your way up to if you need to. And let's rest there. Good. So now we'll get started with a little bit more movement. We're going to go from seated to standing. So make sure, it's probably worthwhile to scoot about halfway forward on that seat. Make sure your heels are planted. Feet should be below the knees. And then we're going to bring those hands up in front of you so that you can lean forward and stand. And we're going to take a seat again. And we're going to focus on doing that without using the hands. This is 3. Good. Let's go through 6 more here. So now what you can start to think about is simply lowering the hips till your butt almost taps the chair without sitting down completely. So now you're making your legs work the entire time. You don't get that little break. Let's do 3 more. And let's do 1 more here. Good. Take a seat. So for the shoulders, while your legs are resting, we're going to raise those arms up in front of us and bring them back down. So the difference here versus that movement we did at the beginning is now the elbows stay straight. This is 3. You can reach them all the way up overhead if you're able to. This is 4. Good. And this is a position where no matter what sort of history you've got with your shoulders, ideally this will be the easiest range of motion to move through. We're about 45 degrees out to each side as we raise those hands up overhead. Let's do 3 more. One more time. Good. And then we're going back to the sit to stands. So this time, do your best, here we go, to focus on lowering your hips down so your bottom touches the chair, but you're not actually sitting down completely. It's 3. This is 4. Coming up on 6. And we got dogs in the background too. Got the whole zoo here. It's 8. This is 10. Let's do 2 more. Good. Come all the way down to seated. And then we're going to go back to that front raise with those arms. So think of reaching your fingertips long, scooping those hands up toward the ceiling, and then controlling that movement back down. If we start by shrugging the shoulders, we're not going to get so high. So reach those fingertips toward the floor first, and then raise them up overhead. So not only does that mean that you're creating sort of a longer arm, we're going to call that 5. You're setting those shoulders into a position where ideally you can reach those hands higher. That's 7-ish. So that's why I like to think of sort of scooping those hands down, reaching those fingertips long, bring them up overhead. Let's do 3 more. Good, couple more. Let's do 1 more here. Good, nice. So go ahead and stand, and we're going to work on using the water bottle for a couple of exercises, simply to give us a little bit of resistance, a little bit of weight to use. we're going to work on a deadlift. So this is how we want to pick up really anything that we're going to get off the floor. We can either squat down to pick items up, or we can do more of a deadlift movement. So if you approach that water bottle, get it set up between the feet. Feet can be about shoulder width apart. So I'm standing with about this much width between my feet. I'm going to demonstrate so you can see my side here, because the important detail is to stick your butt out, hinge from your hips to reach down and pick that up. Come up to standing tall. And that way we're keeping a flat back. Let's just jump right into it. And we're just bending the knees enough to help push those hips back behind us as we take that water bottle down to the floor. This is number 5. And if you're counting along at this point, you can probably tell that I can't talk and count at the same time. That's all right. We get through 10 to 12 in a set. Gives us an idea of how challenging that exercise is. And it gives us something to improve upon over time. And that would either be lifting more weight, doing more repetitions, or maybe running through the video twice for a total of 4 sets per exercise. Let's rest there. Now we're going to take left hand. We're going to bring left hand down to the edge of the chair here. Left foot is going to stay a little bit closer to that chair. Right foot is going to take a step back. The reason that we're doing that is to create a nice flat back. Shoulders are going to be squared up to the floor. Hips and shoulders, I should say, squared up to the floor so that we can reach down and row with that water bottle. So think of lifting that water bottle toward your hip pocket. We're working those back muscles. We're squeezing those shoulder blades together as we lift that bottle. Let's do 3 more. Good. Rest. I'm going to come around to the other side of the chair here. So now my right hand is on the chair. That means my right foot is forward. Left foot takes that step back. Shoulders and hips are squared up. And we're rowing again. Pulling that shoulder blade back to lead the movement. We're pulling elbow toward the sky. And we're not letting that water bottle fall. We're controlling that movement nice and slow on the way down. 9, 10, let's do 2 more. And that's 12. Good. Nice. Take a little break here. We're going to come back to that deadlift again. So if that was bugging the back, then we need to modify. A couple ways to do that would be to potentially take a wider stance here so that we don't have to travel quite as far to reach that bottle. The other option is to simply start to bend the knees a little bit more to guarantee that we're keeping a flat back. So if I'm hinging from the hips and pushing the hips back while keeping a flat back, I maybe don't need a ton of bend at the knees, but if I'm a little less flexible, maybe I've got to sit down into this movement a little bit more, bend at the knees a little bit more to grab that water bottle. So let's go for 12 here. Imagine that you've got a wall behind you, and you can even set yourself up with your back toward the chair. We want that chair or that wall far enough behind you. Let's call this number 5. Far enough behind you that you've really got to work to stick your butt out, push your hips back in order to hinge at the hips. Let's call that number 8. Because no matter what, we want to make sure that we're keeping the lower back feeling happy, knees feeling happy. Why don't we do 2 more here? And 1 more. All right. So we're going back to the row now. So again, we're going to start with left hand on the chair, left foot forward and right foot back. And then let's row, single arm row. Let's lift that water bottle. Maybe you've got a dumbbell at home. Maybe you've got a book bag. Maybe a toolbox, something with a handle. Maybe a small suitcase. If you don't have any of those items, I bet you've got a water bottle, maybe a gallon jug. That'll give you about 8 pounds. Let's do 3 more here. Good, and then let's switch sides. So I'm going to transfer around here, other side of the chair. Now right hand is on the chair and right foot's forward. Left foot takes that step back, and we're rowing for 12. 6. Let's do another 6 here. Good. All right. Take a break here. I'm going to turn the chair. I'm just going to turn it 90 degrees because we're going to do a little bit of balance work here. And it might be nice to just have that chair back handy. And actually, I'll scoot that water bottle back a little bit as well so that we can practice stepping up and over that bottle and then stepping back in. That might be a little too far away from the chair. Maybe just give yourself room for your feet between the bottle and the chair. And we're lifting those feet high, stepping up and over the bottle, working our way toward hands free. Let's do another 8 times each direction. You could even play with maybe tapping your toe right to the top of that bottle. Make it a little more challenging here. Whatever you choose, this is a great opportunity to lift those feet high, work on that balance, maybe drive that heart rate up a little bit. Ooh, maybe crash into a chair. And let's rest there. Good. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to turn this around. What we're going to do is a plank, and we've got some options here. So we can either place hands on the seat of the chair and then step your feet back to a plank position here. So think of a push-up position where we can brace the core tight, flex our glutes or our butt muscles, and hold that. And the goal here is 30 seconds or so. You can also do this exercise with elbows on the chair. This will be a little bit harder. And whatever you choose should be pain-free for the back. And you should be able to feel that core working, those abdominal muscles helping out to support your hips, your spine, and keep that nice flat back as we work here. Let's step out of that exercise. And then let's go back to stepping up and over that water bottle here. So I'm going to start out with the chair handy. This time I'm going to do my very best to not touch the chair. And we're moving, stepping up and over. You've got various options here to make this a little more challenging too. So we could make sure that we're looking straight forward, not looking down at the bottle. You can start to slowly take your gaze side to side as you step up and over that bottle. So your sort of point of reference that you might have, if you were to keep your eyes fixed in on one point, that frame of reference is no longer there. So now we're kind of throwing off the balance. You can nod your head up and down while you do this. Maybe you want to close your eyes. If you're not there, quite yet, that's all right. Let's call that 12-ish. So coming back to the plank, this time a modification that you can use would be to use the back of the chair. Let's go for 30 seconds here. So maybe you're using the back of the chair to be in a more upright position. It's a little bit easier on the shoulders, a little bit easier on the core. If you're not quite ready to bring your hands down or even your forearms down to the chair, this is a great option. You can also do this against a wall. Simply set yourself up in a push-up position against the wall and then start to walk your feet back to the most sort of challenging position you can reach. And that is 30 seconds there. So now, let's see, why don't we take a quick little break here. And then we're going to come back to a little bit more balance work. What that'll look like is the tandem stance. So we're placing one foot in front of the other, and we're simply going to take 3 to 5 steps forward, and then the same movement in reverse. So we're walking heel to toe here, or the best version of that you can do. And then just like we did on the last exercise, we're going to play with various options to make this a little more challenging. So I can nod my head, nod my head up and down. Maybe turn my head side to side. Maybe close my eyes. Pick an option that challenges you. Let's rest there. And then we're going to come to a push-up on the chair. So just like we did with the plank, you can use the seat of the chair, you can use the backrest. You've got options. Only go as far as you're able to. Make sure you trust the chair you're using. This one's maybe a little rickety. But for the sake of demonstration, I'm going to put my hands about as wide as I can. So about shoulder width, edge of the chair here. And then just like I created that nice plank with a flat back, now I'm going to bend at the elbows and lower my body down toward the chair. Unfortunately, my head gets a little close to that backrest. So for the sake of demonstration, if I use this bench, I can lower my body all the way down toward that seat and press all the way back up. I can also modify by stepping one foot forward, so I get that little bit of help from the front foot, which makes that a little bit more manageable for my upper body. I can also do this one against a wall. So if you're working on 12, keep working, maybe another 4 or 5. Let's do 3 more. And then let's rest. Good. So now we're coming back to the tandem walking. Here we go, one foot in front of the other. This time, maybe you're just closing one eye. Maybe you're closing both. There's no rush here. Clearly, I need to be practicing this. And pick that option that provides some challenge for you. Maybe you're at the point right now where you're keeping eyes open. You're keeping your gaze fixed on a set point or an object that's not going to move. But over time, you can start to add in maybe a nod of your head, maybe shaking your head side to side, which means taking your gaze side to side. Let's rest there. We're going to come back to the push-ups. I'm going to run through my 12 right here on the bench. You can use the seat of the chair, you can use the backrest of the chair, or you can simply work on these at a wall. But we're going for 12. Here we go. That's 2. 4, 6, 8, 10, 2 more, and 12. Good. Very nice. So last, we're going to come down to seated on the chair. And we're done with the strength work here. We're simply going to run through a little bit of stretching. So let's start by extending one leg. I've got my right leg extended here. The other foot is going to remain below the knee, just in that bent knee seated position. And then you're either going to keep your hands on your hips, or maybe bring an elbow to the bent knee and lean that body forward. So what this will look like is pushing your hips back behind you and bringing your chest toward your toes of your extended leg, so that rather than slouching forward and rounding, we're keeping a nice tall torso and taking chest to toes here. Let's switch sides. So it's not so important that we touch the toes. What is important is feeling that stretch through the back of the leg, feeling that stretch through the hamstrings by leaning your chest toward your toes. Everybody's different. This might be as far as you can go. Maybe just simply sitting up tall is as far as you can go. But if it creates a stretch on the back of the leg, then we're achieving that goal. So let's go one more time on each side here. Remember, we're not required to touch the toes. We just need to get a good stretch. One more switch. If you like the idea of reaching your arms long, you can. But again, keep that nice tall torso. And then let's ease out of that stretch and go ahead and stand. So the last little bit of stretching that we'll do today will be for the calves. And if you set your feet up in sort of a lunge position here, we're going to keep both heels glued to the floor, and we're going to push the knees forward, bring the body forward. What we should feel here is a nice stretch through the calf on the back leg, maybe a more subtle but present stretch in the calves on the front leg. The way that we can get both calves to stretch at the same time is to prop the front foot up on the leg of the chair, and then keeping those heels glued to the floor, start to push into that stretch here. So let's switch feet. So front foot is propped up on the leg of the chair. Back foot is remaining in contact with the floor. That back knee can be straight or we can bend it, and then we're pushing into that stretch. One more time on each side here. And switching one last time here. Pushing into a good stretch in both calves here. Hopefully that chair doesn't travel on you. Good. All right, you can come on out of those stretches. So hopefully you got a decent bit of work out of that workout, I should say. If you needed to modify anything, that's totally fine. If that felt pretty easy, then using the water bottle or dumbbells, really any weight that you've got at home will be a nice opportunity to make this a little more challenging. So that was roughly 2 sets of 12 on most sets. You can also extend those sets to maybe sets of 15. You can take your time. You can slow the movements down. That will also make it a little more challenging. So play with different ways to make this a little bit harder. Make sure that you're staying in contact with others during this time. And all of us here at the club miss you, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks so much. Have a good one.